Hello, I'm Clint Walker and this is Real Estate Appraiser Secrets, and today we're going to answer a question about the value of updating sort of the small cosmetic things like light fixtures, paint, some floor coverings. And this question was asked by Life in Nashville, Tennessee, who's a local agent and has his own YouTube channel, so I recommend you check that out. I appreciate the question a lot. I think I may have touched on a similar thing in older videos, but it's very difficult to put a value on sort of piecemeal updates, and especially when they're cosmetic, okay? And really, it boils down to an issue of kind of common sense. If you think about paint, let's think about paint. Paint is, a skilled painter is certainly a skilled tradesman. So taking nothing away from them. But painting is something that I did in my first house, that a lot of people do themselves. They choose to not hire a professional to do this work for them. And in that way, it can be a very low-cost proposition. I don't know what a gallon of paint goes for anymore because I haven't had to paint for myself in a long time. But, it's like $55 for a gallon of paint. And you can make a pretty big impact in your home updating paint for a relatively inexpensive cost. And so in that way, you're doing cosmetic work and you're doing something that most buyers could probably perceive of themselves coming in and doing on their own without hiring somebody to do it. Certainly this varies if you've got very tall ceilings or something like that. And again, they can easily Google what a gallon of paint costs and sort of figure out what that work would run them. Okay, so in the context of your home purchase, that's almost always going to run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're talking about a few $100s in this paint improvement. On the appraisal side, I just very rarely, actually, I'll say in the 7 years that I've been in this industry, never ever given a dollar amount adjustment for paint. Now, other things like new floor covering, that's probably the biggest, most expensive impact of the three items that I mentioned at the start of the video. New floor covering, not everyone can do it themselves. Some people can. That is I'd say that's more of a capital improvement to the property than just paint on the walls. So you're starting to look at probably some return on that. It's certainly more expensive than painting. Even if you install it yourself, you're going to spend several $1,000s on floor covering. Light fixtures, again, they can be very cheap to buy and very inexpensive to install. And so in that regard, I would not expect buyers to really, reward all that much. I don't know about you, but when it comes to expensive light fixtures, I have seen people advertise in their listings that they're going to take them with them, and so they don't even stay. So they may have a very expensive light covering that's not even staying in the house. Your appraiser, consequently, if your listing says that or if the contract says that, they're going to see that, and so obviously they're not going to give credit for that expensive light fixture either if it's going away. But really, so the big picture here, and this is what your appraiser is going to be thinking when they're looking at a house like this. Any of these updates, light fixtures, floor coverings, paint, bathroom updates, kitchen updates, the value of these things is all going to fit into the context of the entire property, okay? So I mentioned the common sense component of this. So let's say that your seller goes in and they paint and they put in new floor coverings in a property that's got 50-year-old kitchen and bathrooms that have never been touched. They're not in great shape. And they're going to be generally unattractive to a buyer, or not just unattractive to a buyer, but a buyer is going to look at these rooms and all they can think about them is, I've got to update those. I've got to spend money, and I've got to put in effort and time and energy to update those rooms that didn't get touched. In the context of a property like that, I would be inclined to say, from my own experience, that these other smaller updates, light fixtures, paint, and floor coverings, are almost going to net nothing. Almost going to be completely wasted money, sunk costs, because buyers, in my experience, are a little bit pessimistic. We also know that kitchens and bathrooms, like if you just watch HGTV, these are the areas of the house that historically bring a better return than others on renovation. The flip side of that is, when they're not done, I think they negatively impact a buyer's perception of the property more. And so if you've done other little piecemeal updates, cosmetic improvements, they completely get washed away in the buyer's perception in the scope of what else they have to do to the property. So there's that part of the context too. I have seen, on the subject of piecemeal or partial updates or sporadic updates, I've seen people update kitchens but not touch bathrooms. I've seen people update bathrooms but not touch kitchens. And I think it causes the same problem. When the buyer walks in and there's still work left to do, it detracts from the work that has been done. And if you're detracting from the work that has been done, you're detracting from your return on that investment that you've made. A lot of times, I'll talk about this from the context of flipping properties, which I've done, and which is the bulk of my agent work, is representing people who do. You can get really, if you're going to be in flipping to make money, I always suggest you look at the other sales in your area as sort of like a blueprint. Look at what other flippers are doing and what they're touching, and you'll see sort of just like your appraiser is doing in all lender work. We're using closed sales to prove to the lender what the property's worth. When I'm flipping a house, I use closed sales to determine what is working for other flippers, and therefore what I'm going to do in mine. So sometimes that might mean a piecemeal remodel. It might mean not replacing kitchen cabinets, only replacing the kitchen countertop, and but still doing the bathrooms, okay? Because the bathrooms are less they're a less expensive proposition than usually remodeling a whole kitchen. And what I'm learning from those sales is that if done properly, or if you look at these sales, they may not have replaced the kitchen cabinets, but they've almost certainly cleaned them, painted them, done something with the whole goal of not detracting from the buyer's experience when they go in the property, so they'll overlook these older material components of the house, okay? So it's in sort of that experience and what I know of doing that professionally, that's sort of where I get the idea that the buyer's perception really is the key here, okay? It's so if updating those floors is going to take away anything that might detract from the buyer's experience, that could be a high impact, high return thing to do. You could get more money back out of it by replacing a component that detracts from the buyer's experience than you would ignoring it. But if you're going to replace something and there are still going to be other components of the property that detract from the buyer's experience, you might be wasting your money. That's sort of the gist of it. The other valuable aspect to any of this stuff could be, aside taking away any sort of line item, dollar amount ROV, the other benefit to doing paint, light fixtures, and floor coverings can always be that it makes your house sell faster than other houses. Or in a market where maybe you've got a lot of properties on the market right now and a lot of competition, some of these properties could conceivably not sell at all. And just by virtue of you doing these little things to spruce up the appearance of yours, again, take away these detracting factors, You make your property sell faster. That can save you a mortgage payment. That can save you from being asked for closing costs. It can save you from being asked for repairs. So some of these benefits that you get out of it don't necessarily come on the appraised value. They come from what you're avoiding being asked to pay for by the buyer in your transaction. And so in that way, you can put a dollar amount on it. That's obviously harder to game plan for if you're really thinking about, well, I'm spending $3,000 on floor coverings and I only want to do that if I'm going to get $4,000 back. Okay. That can be tough, but at the end of the day, there are a lot more factors and valuable factors in the context of an entire property than just looking at individual items on a dollar for dollar return basis. So, and that's how we do it when we're flipping. We look at some of the things we know we're not going to get a big return on, but our competition's doing it. We think the buyers expect it. We know that it's going to take those things to make the property sell in a quick and predictable way. And so we do it. And every single item just doesn't come down to dollar for dollar return. So I hope that's helpful. If you're preparing your house to list, or you're talking to your agent, or you're an agent talking to your seller, think about it in the grand scheme of the whole house. Like, what is negatively affecting buyer's perception when they walk through there? That is, it can be tough to do as a homeowner, and it can be tough to do as a listing agent, because again, if you can't walk through with a measure of objectivity, then it can be tough to really let those negative factors sink in. An appraiser can help you with that on a pre-listing appraisal. You're going to get an objective view. You're going to get that objective view from a person who looks at a lot of houses. And that is also very informative, because we have sort of in our minds, we don't walk in with the value in mind, but we walk in, if we work in that area a lot, the good understanding of what the competition is for your listing. So I hope that's helpful. I really appreciate you watching as always. If we can be of service to you, can catch us on appraiserpool.com for pre-listing appraisals, any sort of private appraisal, consultations, professional measurements. And thank you again, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.